What is going on, gamers? This is Morbid Knight here with AGN, and today we are going to be discussing my support attack build. All right, so for this support build, I just kind of wanted to show you what I was doing, where I was going roughly with this character. This isn't going to be a scripted video. I'm just going to take you on a little tour of what I've been tinkering on here the past week or so, and predominantly what I wanted to do here is I wanted to make a character that was good for support, that was good for solo play as well. But predominantly, you know, I do like having the types of roles where I'm assisting other players because I do play with a lot of really good people who are really, really hardcore slayers. And this really helps me kind of function in the sense of being able to, operate as an individual, but also operate in a larger sense by assisting them do what needs to be done. So with that being said, you see a lot of, I'm part of a lot of Facebook groups, part of a lot of, YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to that I see. I'm on Reddit quite frequently, so I see a lot of builds, all right? And a lot of these builds that I see, the predominantly big favored one that is salient out of everything that I see is what we like to call the glass cannon, which is essentially real high DPS, high stamina, or mid-range stamina with very, very low electronics. And I'm going to be discussing why I prefer something different today and kind of giving you just a little preview of my character of what I've made thus far. So, as we can see, the first thing that I'd like to do is I would like to go outside here so that I can just pull out some of my weapons and show you different stats based upon those. And you're going to notice that that I am pretty evenly tempered in all three of the main primary attributes. And what I mean by primary attributes is I obviously mean your firearms, stamina, and electronics. And if you look here, you'll see that I have pretty low, to be honest, for my primary DPS. I'm only at 108 and 106 for my vector, which isn't really considered high by any standards. And that could use a little work, and I can switch out some mods to make that DPS a little bit higher if I'm going to be playing by myself. But I'm going to show you why, for me, that really doesn't matter much and it really doesn't affect my gameplay a huge amount. So as we go into the actual stats here, we see that my primary DPS it's around 110, give or take. My health is around 76,000 and my skill power is around 31,000. And my skill power is very high and my health is very high, but the thing that I want you to pay close attention to, when we go down to survivability over here, you'll see that my armor is at around 63%. And I can have that a little bit higher, but for right now I keep it around 63 because it's a give or take. You can't always have everything perfect. So right now with the 63% armor mitigation, as we know, 65% is the max that your character can have. And so many people want to sit here and focus on health and on their stamina, but really, the thing that matters at this stage of the game is your armor. How much damage reduction are you actually doing when you're getting shot? How long before they actually start taking away your health? And for so many people, they forget about that and they just throw on the gear that gives them maybe the best perks, that maybe gives them the most mod slots so that they can dump, tons of mods or tons of stuff into their firepower to get that stat up really high. And for me, it's more important to have good health and good armor because it gives you a little bit more forgiveness. You don't get forgiveness in DPS. With a glass cannon build, it's either you kill them right away, and if you miss anything, if you screw anything up, if you get caught in a reload, if you get caught missing some shots due to a roll, you don't have that room for error, and their team or that individual is going to shoot you down very quickly. So, moving on, we see that we have a high armor rating, and that is important. It's something that I want all of you guys to concentrate on when making your characters, not forgetting the armor, okay? Don't forget that. Now, if we go back over, we will see here that my primary damage weapon is going to be the vector. It's pretty common. SMGs are the most OP weapon for the class of guns that are available, because especially in PvP, being as most engagements aren't going to happen at more than 30 meters. I'm sorry. It's like you may be an expert marksman and you may have some crazy sniper build that can two-shot people, but that is not the norm. That is an outlier. That is not something that you commonly encounter inside of the DZ. And the things that you commonly encounter are close range, because you hit me one time, and even if it takes off a huge chunk of my health, I'm going to get to cover and I'm going to heal, and I'm going to rush in. I'm going to use cover to cover to get closer to you to bring the engagement to you. And that's almost how every encounter goes. So I prefer assault rifles and SMGs. With that being said, I'm using the vector right now, and like I said, it doesn't have a huge attack value on it. But, however, if we go into my character and we go down to weapons, you see that my critical hit chance is 37%, and my critical hit damage is 124% with that weapon. My headshot damage is 91%. So the reason why this is so important is because I'm using a build that is focused around skill based. And the skill base that I've chosen for both support and attack is the pulse scan. And I use the pulse scan with the tactical scanner modifier. And if you look down here and you will see that my critical hit damage is 98%. All right, so you see that I had 130 critical hit damage already on, plus an additional 100%, brings it up to 230% critical hit damage. My critical hit chance was 35% with the weapon. The max that you can have is 60%, I believe, for critical hit chance. And so you add on my critical hit chance with the pulse, which says that there's 32.5%. I am maxed out on critical hit damage, or critical hit chance, and my critical hit damage is huge. It's just astronomical. And my cooldown is about 40 seconds, which, to be honest, in every single PvP engagement, it's like every time I come into an engagement, I'm going to have a scan. You know, a scan, its duration is 25 seconds. Most encounters aren't going to be much longer than 30 seconds, and if they are, you have bigger problems. So as you can see, the reason why I don't mind so much that I have such a lower actual DPS is because I always have pulse scan. All right, I always have pulse scan, and I always have that huge amount of damage boost that it's going to give me, which takes my 110 DPS and really just boosts it into the ranges that you'll see from very high DPS players. And the way that I got such a high critical hit damage and critical hit chance off of this skill is, yes, in large part due to my electronic skill, which is at 30k, which honestly I could have higher. And I'll probably re-roll some mods to get that up to 32. But also, I want to just show you all of my gear. And as you can see, like all of my gear, you have major and minor attributes. For me, I have basically, as you see here, there's a skill attribute that gives me +8 to pulse critical hit damage. You'll see in my backpack over here that I have a +2.5 to critical hit damage bonus. And you will see on my gloves that I have a +30% critical hit damage, as well as 5.5 critical, oh, sorry, wrong gloves. As you see here that I have a 36% critical hit damage and +10 damage to elites and +419 SMDG damage. On my holster, I have an additional 8% pulse critical hit damage. So, you know, it is best to just focus on giving all those attributes into one area of specification so that you can really maximize the use of those skills. And obviously you can, as time goes on and you collect more gear, you can have different gear for different abilities that you use and try to focus all of them on one ability so that you can maximize the punch that you're going to be getting from that one thing. Now, as we go over here, I also want to show you a little bit about the weapons that I use. Obviously, so the main weapon that I use for PvP is going to be the Black Market AK-47. And with the Black Market AK-47, I have this spec for accuracy and for stability. All right, because that is really going to affect your ability to hit headshots and to just focus this thing like a laser beam, which is going to give you a lot more DPS than you would obviously assume prima facie. So with that being said, I have a higher rate of fire with an increased magazine size. I obviously could do that a little bit better and probably re-roll one that has more, but for right now I'm just using a purple one, and I've just been lazy, to be honest about it. But it gives me an increased 25% rate of fire and a 75.5% magazine size, which takes up my RPMs to about 750, which is astronomical when you think about it for an AR, because it's essentially like if you go down to my Vector, I'm 750. So it's giving you longer range, more rounds in the magazine, not the same crit chance, of course, because SMGs, the reason why all of them are OP is because they give you an innate crit chance. If you see here, right on the screen, it says submachine gun plus 23% critical hit chance. Just so you can see my mods here. For the Vector, I have using a skill increases your critical hit chance by 8% for 5 seconds. Accuracy is increased by 46%. And the main one is deadly, which is critical hit damage is increased by an additional 26%. So when I'm using this weapon, my critical hit damage is just going through the roof. And my pulse scan is pushing my critical hit damage through the roof. And it's really important to know because I'm not compromising anything in armor. I'm not compromising anything in skill power. I'm not compromising anything in health. As you can see, like all of my skills are very high. The only thing that you look at and you suspect is my DPS for my primary DPS. But when you see all of the boosts and all the perks that I'm getting with my pulse scan, you'll realize that it's really not a delimiting factor at all. It's not a disability in the least bit. In fact, I might even be outputting more damage than people who have their primary DPS at 150, but then have their skill power and their health, you know, fairly low. And the other thing that I'd like to say, and that I've discussed in previous videos, is that health is a guaranteed boon every single time. DPS is not guaranteed. Just because you have 150k DPS or 175k DPS does not mean you're landing all your shots, that you're gonna land all of your shots. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to shoot when you're bleeding or when you're stunned or when you get caught inside of a shock grenade or a shock turret. All of those things don't mean anything, and those are all tools that the enemy is going to be employing. But however, having a high skill power, high health, high armor, those are directly correlated to your survivability. So it means that I have a higher chance of surviving using my skills that I have to inflict DPS on them over a longer period of time, since this is a long time to kill game. So with my high skill power, it guarantees that when I use my healing ability, because when you're playing PvP, you should always use a healing ability. I use Overdose, and as you can see, I'm healing myself for nearly 60,000. All right, for nearly 60,000 with a 25-second cooldown, which means that a lot of people that have like very low skill builds, they basically have to use a med pack and their skill heal, and their skill heal maybe will heal them for a bar of their health, of their overall health. Or it might heal them for more, but they don't have a whole lot of health to begin with the heal. And the thing that I would like to say too is that with this, I have a very firm order of operations for how I heal myself in combat. You can generally feel to know if another person is inflicting high DPS. And if I encounter another glass cannon, the thing that I like to do is I can tell right away how much DPS they're doing on me, because I have room for error. I have room to be able to see this because of my high armor and because of my high stamina. I can know how much they're inflicting on me. If they're not a threat, I'll just pop my skill heal and I'll finish them off after I hit my pulse scan. But if I can tell that they're a high DPS build and they're a threat, I always do these three things. I hit med pack, right? Med pack gives me 40% damage reduction as soon as I hit it. So I hit med pack, I inflict damage, I hit pulse, I inflict damage. Then I hit skill heal, which will overheal me because I use overheal. Then, if I still think that they're doing so much damage, by the time that I've hit my med pack and hit my skill heal, I can hit med pack again. Whereas if you hit skill heal med pack, by the time you need another med pack, you might not be able to hit it. So this is very important to know. This is just stuff that you want to be sure that you know how to use effectively with this build. So, with that being said, I also would like to show you what I am using for PvE. And so for PvE, when I'm actually doing gameplay, I am using the Caduceus, alright? And as you can see, my Caduceus does not do a lot of damage, but the main redeeming factor of this weapon is its talents. And let's look at its talents. Its talents are performing a headshot reduces all skill cooldowns by 5.5%, and critical hits with this weapon heal the user for 3% of the damage done. Okay, let's consider this. I'm a skill-based build, right? I'm skill-based where I have high electronics, high health, so I have good support, I have good heals, but also I have an amazing pulse scan that does incredible damage, incredible critical hit damage. So you'll see down here first that critical hits, the damage. So the critical hits with this weapon heal the user for 3% of the damage caused. And since I am always having my pulse scan and I can always get super high critical hit damage, the healing is significant. And I have this spec'd out towards stability and accuracy. As you can see, the accuracy on mine is pretty high. You know what I mean? It's pretty high for this model of gun. Not quite as high as my black market AK-47, because let's just face it, that thing is a laser beam, but it is very high for this. But the other talent here, performing headshot reduces all skill cooldowns by 5.5%. Literally, guys, I'm not joking at all. When I'm playing PvE, I can headshot someone for a magazine and all my skills will be down. I can constantly put down heals. My pulse and my heals are ready before they're even done, in most of the time. It's rare that I hit a pulse and then I don't have another pulse available for it when I need it again. So usually what I'll do is I'll hit a pulse, I'll crank out a full magazine with the Caduceus in order to refresh all my skills. Then I switch to my SMG where I have huge amount of critical hit damage, and I'll just lay that to waste. And like literally, we have in our squad 3 people that use this weapon, and all 3 of us are just constantly dropping so many healing bubbles and so many pulse scans, so many sticky bombs, so many flashbangs for CC. It's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. So I want you all to consider this and look at this build and just look at everything as a whole. Don't get so lost into these three, metrics that they give you for the DPS, for the health, and the skill power. Those things aren't everything. Death is in the details, the devil's in the details, and you're going to find that out as you create your build. And as someone who has played tons of hours in PvP, tons of hours in PvE, I mean, like, I have 9 days into this game already, and plus that's not counting my time on the computer. So I've put a lot of time. I've played against a lot of opponents, and to be honest, I'm not the greatest player in the world. I'll never claim that, but I rarely get killed. I rarely get killed by other players because most of them either they inflict a high amount of DPS, in which case I can combat that by my high armor and by med pack, skill heal, med pack, or or my pulse, it's just decimating it. So I just want you guys to look at this. I just thought I'd share and make this quick video. If you have anything that you'd like to recommend to me that maybe like I'm not thinking of, that you've thought of that could help me in my build, please leave it in the comments below. And if any of you would like me to help you with your build or answer any questions, post down whatever it is that you'd like to ask down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as well. Well, this is Maury here with AGN, and I'm going to be turning off and letting all of you guys getting back to playing this great game. Thanks for watching, and as usual, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to the channel would really help me, guys. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed any of the content that I make, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. So that's all. This is Maury with AGN turning off and going rogue.